Hello, everybody, and welcome to Transforming Today Show. I'm your host, Rebecca Weintraub, and I'm here with Rosane Gibson. How are you, Rosane?
I am fantastic, Rebecca, and thank you so much for being here with you today.
I just love your spirit. You just have light shining through you, and you just have such a positive anabolic energy all the time.
Oh, thank you so much. And you too. I also resonate that you have that too, to be able to appreciate that.
Oh, that's actually a good point too. So thank you for that compliment because sometimes we don't really think about that, right? Sometimes it's all about perception and kind of what we're taking in and how we see the world. So I never thought about that. Thank you. I learned something today.
Yeah, sometimes people that are not able to appreciate good things that others have is because they don't have it, so they don't know how to get it, and it can get annoying. So I do have some people say like, oh my God, she's so happy, she never stops. It can be a little annoying for some people, but people that have that inside, they say, oh, can I take you home?
Yeah, yeah, and to not judge that, that's actually pretty special to just kind of recognize it and observe it, but not place judgment on where people actually are in their energy levels or in their life. I love that.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're here because you'd like to share how you help others. Can you please tell us?
Yeah, so it's been a process of finding out who I want to help. And actually, what I like to say is that I assist people to find fulfillment in their lives. And the way that I do this is by helping them to become confident about themselves. It's based on self-love, self-esteem, self-appreciation. Because when we know who we are and what we are here to do, then it becomes like second nature, like everything unfolds for us. But when we don't know our core and we're not confident about who we are, we use masks to try to please others and try to get things, get by through life. And it doesn't just work like that. So I like to say that I am a confident coach. So I help you become confident.
Love that. So I'm assuming, and maybe I'm assuming wrong, but this didn't just happen overnight or happen immediately. This was some sort of transformation or journey that you went through to arrive. Can you tell us about it?
Oh, Rebecca, aren't you right? I wasn't always like that ever. No, so let's go back to 3 years old. So I was this little girl, and I wasn't able to tell this story for a long time until we all healed and I all saw the big perspective of everything of my life story unfolding to the point where I am now. So this 3-year-old little girl, that I was, seeing my father leaving out my home to never ever return again. And that was right after a fight with my mother. So they were in a very dysfunctional relationship. So there I was, and my sister and my mother actually was hurt, and he leaves, and I never have never seen him back. So that was very hurtful for me. And so what happened with that story is that it became like a way of seeing everything. So let's say relationships with men was always I would be attracted to people that would leave me. So, so I had 2 divorces. And in between relationships, they were also like impossible. So he lives in Australia. Good one to leave me, right? Or if the relationship was amazing, they were wonderful men, I would make sure that the relationship ends. So I would become the spoiled one. So because it was a pattern for me. So then what happens is that my life story had several episodes where I felt the lonely bird. So I'm the one who is left off. And the climax for this feeling was when I had the second divorce. So I was empty in my room, shifting to go, to the next phase of my life. And my children, so I have 3 sons, they were all teenagers at that time. They were all left. They said, Mom, since we're moving, so I'm gonna live with my girlfriend. And the other one says, oh, I'm gonna be in this, in Ocala, working with horses. And the third one said, well, I wanna go to the Navy. And then all of them, 3 boys, split in different directions. So then that really sink on me like this abandonment feeling, like I was not worth it. Like I need people wouldn't love me, they would always leave me. That's what led me to look for a coach. So I had a phone call session with a coach, and that phone call shifted me immediately. And on that phone call, I saw like, wow, there is a reason that my life is unfolding this way, that I'm feeling this way, like in a broken record. It always comes back. I always recreate this feeling inside of me. So then through coaching, I got clear about the reason, and I got clear about this feeling and processed it all, to say, I don't really want to be this way. I don't want to be feeling like a lonely bird. I don't want to live my life like, you know, trying to please people, because that's another pattern. When you are abandoned, so you think you did something wrong. So you play small and you try to please others so you can fit in and people can love you. And that was my pattern. So when I realized that, no, I was the one creating and attracting all these situations because of a core feeling of being abandoned, then I said, okay, so if I created all this, I want to create something different. So then through the process of, coaching and, awakening to this reality, to this, to what really happened, I was able to shift from inside out to really become who I wanted to become. And deep inside, I've always been joyful. I've always been creative. I always like to dance. So I tuned into that aspect of myself and I enhanced it. And as I was doing this, things were shifting. So I was attracting different situations, different people, and living in a more joyful spirit. And out of a sudden, I was feeling confident, and I no longer was, in relationships that were defeating me or abandoning me, or I was locked into patterns of not knowing what to do. So I became really clear about what I wanted, who I was, and how my life was going to unfold from that time on. So that's basically how I became a confident coach. So there's another part of it too. Please cut me off if I'm speaking too long. But the other part of it is that when I was starting to coach right off coaching school, I thought that I was a transition coach. So I thought I was good into taking people from, these phases of their lives that they are not happy with to move to the other phase of their lives where they can create like I did. But one day I just listed all my clients that I have that I was seeing, and I listed their names, and by the names on the side, I said, okay, what is the pain element? What are they really suffering from? And all of them, there are several elements, but what was common for all of them was lack of self-esteem, lack of self-love, not really feeling like they deserve to have a place in the world. And I said, this is unbelievable. This is right. This is exactly what all of them have. So I don't think I'm a transition coach. I think I am a confident coach. I am a coach that helps people to get in touch with who they are, to know who they are, and then bring that to light and become confident. And then everything else will come in place, will unfold for them. So that's basically how I came to be and find who I can help.
What an amazing story. And, right as you started telling it, I couldn't believe how similar our stories are. When I was 2 years old, I was separated from my father. I've never seen him to this day. And like you, I too was in relationship after relationship, whether it was them leaving or me ending it early so I wouldn't experience them leaving me. I really identify with your story. And of course, we're separate people. We have separate experiences, but the issue of abandonment is really hard to heal. It's literally like trying to fill up a container that has a hole in the bottom and you just keep trying to, like, let's say, add water to that container to fill it up, and until you find that hole, It's never gonna actually fill up. And part of my life was discovering where that hole was, or the couple holes. And so I'm wondering, can we go a little more in depth about how you were able to discover those things that needed filling?
So it was a process because it didn't all come all together in, you know, in one session or two or three. But of course, I had a great coach that was helping me. There's something that's called the victim consciousness. And I really tapped into that. Like, this lady coach that was helping me, she was an expert on victim consciousness. And I think that through the process of feeling victimized about what happened with my father leaving me and other episodes of abandonment, it became a pattern for me to feel a victim. So they are always wrong. They're doing this to me. And the more I was seeing situations through this perspective, more I was suffering, more I was locked, and more of what I didn't want was coming to me. So it's almost like I came to understand that there's two ways of learning. You either learn by conscious choice or you learn by suffering. And I was done. I was ready, and I did not want to suffer anymore. So by being ready to learn how all these unfolds and how our mind works, was very crucial to me. So I dove in deeply, and it hurt so much. Because when you first realize I am creating all this, when you know you are a victim, so there's a part of you saying, no, they did this to me. But how did they do this to me? And how do I create this? So it's confusing to me to figure out exactly, the fine line about I create this and they are doing this to me. So I couldn't separate the story because the stories are so strong and we have so many evidence, so well, mind does that, as a coach that, mind gathers evidence. So whenever you think like doctors kill people, I'm going to say, yeah, doctors kill people. I'm going to start looking for evidence that they do. And I find lists in Google, or I talk to people that will agree with me. And then out of a sudden I have a petition to sign to take doctors out of a hospitals or power, right? Some crazy analogy. But the same thing, if I say doctors save lives, then I'm saying, yeah, doctors could be priests. So my mind could go on that direction, finding evidence that, yes, doctors are amazing because they saved the life of this friend and this other friend. And then I go to Google and I find numerous stories. So when I realized that that's how the mind works, I became like my own mind spy. It's like you get two people, like you have me living life and the observer. So the observer was observing me interacting in the stories and seeing when I was falling into the victim character. And then the observer say, why are you doing this? And then I, oh yeah, because I've always done this. It's a pattern. And then I find reasons and justification to blame someone. So I was really locked into what we call the victim triangle. You feel victim, then you blame. You accuse. It's always what victims do. They did this to me, that's why I'm a victim. So you always go into that pattern of accusing. And then because I accuse, I was maybe rude or was too much, into that stand of accusing, then I regret. And because I regret, I'm gonna be playing small. I'm so sorry I did that, or trying to get the person back. And then because you do that, something is gonna happen in that interaction that you feel victim again. And then you are locked into this cycle of unhappiness. So you feel victim, you accuse and regret. You feel victim, you accuse and regret. You feel victim, you accuse and regret. And your life is always that pattern with different characters. So I had to break through this, become the observer, the bigger part of me that, is the one, I like to say, like when you're looking at us in the mirror, so there are several throughout ages, like when you're little and you look at yourself in the mirror, there's an observer looking at yourself with that little face. And then you grow up, you're a teenager, you're still looking at yourself, but the observer looks that the face has changed, but the observer hasn't changed. And then you grow up as an adult woman and you still look at yourself in the mirror and there's an observer, and the observer hasn't changed. So we grow in life, but there is always that observer. And then I became very, very connected with the observer. Like everything I do now is the observer is observing what's happening. And then this way the observer helps me to, you know, design my life the way I want it and to feel fulfilled. And it becomes now another pattern that happens, which is a positive pattern, because it's like changing radio stations. You know, you tune into FM instead of AM. So now you're listening to different music. So sometimes people come to me and say, how come you're so happy all the time? Because it is a habit. The more you are happy, the more you yummy and good feelings, you will become this magnet of, you know, you resonate in that level. And the same thing, I think we grow up being trained, you know, by the old regime to really be nurturing bad thoughts, feeling of being victimized. We talked about each other, and that happens in small scales between us and friends and the world. Like, you know, the wars and all stuff is all about that. It's like being victim and accusing and rescuing, and that kind of a, you know, sick pattern of almost like, I think we call it the, what do you call it? In psychology, they say, like a psycho illness, you know, like you have neurosis or some sort of a paranoia. We become paranoids and we don't know. I wish we had a manual that we were handed to when we were born, but that's the way it is, you know, in this planet. So that's what we learn here.
Well, let's actually talk about observations and manuals. So as you learned how to become that observer and get in tune with that sort of perspective, you were gathering information that was helpful to you to apply to how you wanted to show up as your future self. And so it seems as though you were almost creating a manual as you were doing that. So that then in turn became the new habit that you are going to, you know, put in effect, so you can stay in this more positive place within your life and tune into those channels that are more positive. So if someone is listening right now and watching you right now, and they're curious about how you actually gathered that information, you put it together, you let's say you put that manual together, and then you were able to apply that to these new habits. How did you actually do that?
Right. So there was a time that I was a dance instructor, and I used to dance and teach dance. And every time I danced, I felt very empowered, very natural, like my little inner child was playing. I was almost like I was living my truth. And I believe that everybody that does something with the body, like the activity that they love, could be swimming, walking, running, or playing, you know, racquetball or whatever, they feel the same way. So dance was my medium. And every time I used to dance, I used to feel, oh, I feel enlightened. So I think that what I do, and actually I did name my dance school was called Enlightenment Through Dance, because when you dance everything, the world is beautiful. But when I was not dancing, then mind would kick in and lock me into the pattern of old thoughts and the old regime and old beliefs, and be fearful and feeling victimized. So I didn't know how to deal with the mind, and I couldn't dance for 24 hours. But the thing is, at one time, I went to the doctor because I was feeling like something was, I don't know, right with my body. And the doctor said, he wrote a prescription because he examined me. There was nothing wrong with me. And he wrote a prescription for me saying, just dance every day. Because I told him I used to dance as one of the things. Just dance every day. And when I look at that, I said, just dance every day. That was like a prescription for life. So that's what really I want to do. If I can just drop everything and dance every day, that would solve my life. So then that's what I really did. And I actually wrote a book about it, Enlightenment Through Dance. Yeah. But so I had to search for more, right? So I was now intrigued by what mind does to us. So it was a process. And one of the things that really helped is to understand that our natural state is bliss. Bliss is like when you're born and you're a kid, all children are blissful.
Mhm.
Joy is so easy for us to tap into. It's not an effort. So it was nothing to do like I had to do an effort to change. No, it was opposite. It was a release. It was a let go of the pressure. It was a drop of those thoughts that were in my mind that were creating those feelings and making me act in some way. And it was mostly like allowing my inner self to shine, my inner self to be free, right? So not feeling like a lonely bird, but feeling like a butterfly, who I really was. So it was mostly working, not working, but was like letting go and release than trying to be something. So I started looking for my tribe. Who wants to play with me? Right? So then I started doing this, and the more I did this, the more I became more, like the term we use in coaching, anabolic, which is holding up the joy and the peace. And then I became more stable, and I also yummy in the good feelings, stopping exaggerating on the bad feelings and do opposite, exaggerate on the good feelings, like yummy them in and say, yes, it's a good day today, it's sunny, yes, there's music, I love that music. So the more you tap into this, it's so powerful that it just sucks you in naturally.
When you live in a state of bliss and when it's fairly constant, what I've found is that sometimes there isn't a limit to how sort of high you can get in that bliss. And what I've found is that when I'm experiencing energy like that, sometimes it starts to feel uncomfortable because it's almost like too much. And so I'm wondering if you've ever experienced sensations like that too, and if so, how you have kind of brought yourself down into a more comfortable place if it felt uncomfortable.
I agree with you. It's like I feel like I'm a kite. You can go as far as you give the thread, like you release the thread. And no, I don't. I feel I want more and more, and I love to live in that state. The only thing that stops me is that sometimes I have to interact with people and people are not there with me, and then I have to kind of it's almost like I have to bring the kite down and ground, and there's a lot of activities that I have to do to ground me. And like today, like right now, I'm like really grounded to speak with you because my natural state now, because I rehearsed this so much. I let my inner child be so wild that she is. If you bring me a lollipop, I'll jump in. I'm a perfect match for my granddaughters, and nobody can understand this because I get there the age because they can resonate with me. So there is no limit, and you express that really how I resonate with it. You can really become joy, and you can make joy your state. Now I have. It's of course there are moments that I get sad because something sad happens, and not that I'm gonna be playing all the time. There's moments that I feel sad, but it doesn't last too long because I'm in touch with that joy that lives in me now. Because everything else is illusion. I know it is. So, and because I practice yummy the joyful feeling in, it's not. It does never stop. It's just good. It stops if I feel down, but I stay there for a process the emotion. I like to say this. Sometimes when people tell us a joke and you laugh about the joke, you laugh like, it finished, right? Because the joke, the laugh goes through your body and it's complete, right? And when we are sad, it should be the same thing. You cry, you feel so sad, and you mourn, and you feel the pain, but then it completes that. But what happens is that we are trained by our parents, by society, by friends, by everything, TV, that you should talk about what's happening that's sad. As if we would find a solution if we talk, or if we're really sad about it. And you make it last longer than it should.
Mm.
because the natural state, the natural flow of emotion is just like the laugh, the sadness the same way. So I became really good about this. I became really like, because the observer observes, and I don't really need to be in that state anymore. It's processed. And another thing that I like to say, Rebecca, is that no matter, okay, if you see somebody sick, okay, and you feel sad for them because you're sick, this person, let's say, if you become sick with a person, can you help her?
Mm.
No. And the same thing, if you give all your money to somebody that doesn't have money, will you help the person? Will you help the world? No, because you're not broken. So I don't think that we have to get out of the good feelings to be a good human being. You know, like Mother Teresa used to say, don't call me for a war rally or something, you know, against the war or something. Call me for a peace rally, then I will go. So it's like really become an expert of looking at the positive side of things, but not like in a way that, oh, I'm a positive person. No, you become it. It's like positive incarnation. It's like being that, because every minute that we are leaving this planet is so precious, and we are, you know, we are just like 3 minutes away if we're not really living it in our truth. And when I feel sad, I know that sadness has a message for me. It's like almost like, you know, like when you feel pain, like say you touch your hand on the stove, it's hot. You're gonna do ouch, ouch, right? So the same thing when you feel an emotional pain, it's like ouch. Be careful, I don't want to go there.
Mm.
So pain for me is nothing more than my guiding system telling me that, hey, go to the other side, you know, that's not where you want to go. So that's how I process it. Makes sense?
Yeah, it does. And oftentimes I'll say to my clients, really, too, you know, pain is within the resistance. It's not necessarily in what you're feeling, or it's not in the process of processing that pain out. It's in the resistance of wanting to do that process. And so if we sit in the resistance, we're creating our own pain that is unnecessary, because really the pain that we have to process is what naturally is running through us, or has happened to us, or we've created. And so you end up with a double blockage, because you've got one part which is getting through the resistance, which is painful, and then you have the other side, which is actually addressing the pain. And that latter side is actually not that bad. I mean, does pain hurt? Yeah, it hurts. But like you were saying, we get to choose how long it hurts us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you learned how to accept, acknowledge, and let go anything that's been hurting you. And so you have this natural tendency to kind of live in the light, live in the positive, because you've learned how to just let that flow in and let it flow out. So do you have any exercises, maybe one that you could share, that would help someone get through that resistance quickly and just process out that pain that they are naturally experiencing?
Yes, I do. I have many, and I'll share one with you now. I just want to when you said like that I naturally do this, it wasn't like this for a long time. You know, the natural shift. It's a training. I do believe it's a training, and I believe it's like the observer training that, you know, the act. It's almost like the director and the actor. So the part of me that acts and it performs in the life stories is in obedience with the command, which is the observer, right? So so that's the first exercise, is to really understand that we are not just this, we are more. You know, and there's a part of us, some people want to call the soul, some people want to call you know, the higher self, right? I like to call the observer, because it really, it is what it is. You oh, I know I'm observing, you know, it's a part of you. And so however you want to see this, so I totally have that awareness that the observer is taking control of life, and that it's a training. So you train every day, you train all the time. What am I doing? I'm holding a pen. So the observer observes the hand grabbing a pen. And you know, even though this is an automatic act and everything that we do with our body in our daily lives is automatic, because it's like involuntary muscles are helping us live life here, right? Like you are being breathed, your breath just breathes itself. You like, you know, only when you stop and say, let me see, oh yeah, lack of air, oh, let me breathe now. Now I'll do a voluntary breathing. I'll do, which helps because the voluntary breathing is being guided by the observer. Mm. So all those yoga breaths that we learn when you go to yoga, or, you know, if you can, there are so many YouTube videos that teaches you to breathe, is very, very powerful. So breathing is so important. It's being connected with the breath that's breathing you, is giving attention to the observer. You know, knowing that your heart is beeping and you're doing nothing for it, your nail is growing and you're doing nothing for it to happen, is the observer, observing the body, and being in touch with what the body sensations. When somebody said something, it hurt me. So the observer observes that feeling. Where is it hurting? You know, and then all this is a training for you to know that you are not your story. You're not what's happening to you. You are the spark of consciousness that's present all the time. But when we don't know this, we live life like you know, a puppy, or, you know, like through instinct. So that's the first one, to be the observer. The other thing that I do is use my 5 senses. Also the 6 senses comes naturally if you really rehearse your 5 senses. So what are you looking at? Are you just looking, or are you seeing? You know, so let's say let's go back to the pen. Oh, interesting. And then I go beyond this. I go say, oh, there's a pen here. Who made it? Mm-hmm. How many people took to make this pen? You know, like half a dozen? Oh, it was a factory. Who built the factory? Mm-hmm. How does the machine work? You know, so I go kind of I just let my mind flow into assuming assumptions of how was this made for me? And now it writes, right? And then I do this when I'm taking a shower. So I'm observing my hand touching the pen. So then after going through that process of knowing that this pen is not here for me, just appeared here, there's a process that it came here for me. Mm-hmm. But also, how am I touching it? What do I feel when I touch it? So be aware of my sense. Like I'm touching now the computer table, right? I'm touching the computer. It's another sense. It's warm. It's warm now, you know, so the air around me. So it's like really develop this awareness of the senses that brings us to live life. So then the touching, the smell of food and cooking, you know, so many essences and flowers, and there's so many varieties of smell that if you don't tune into it, you miss out. You know, so I love to smell, you know, coffee in the morning, to smell like a cake that's baking, or, you know, anything, even the smells that don't smell so good. You're like, okay, I don't like that smell, you know, like being aware of that. And what I really love to do, and it's really easy for me because I'm in Sedona, Arizona, is to look out through the window and go outside and look at these red rock formations, you know, they're here and so bright. And when sunset, the sun spotlights the rock and they are like fiery red. So this looking out the horizon, whatever you are, you know, for me, it's like Sedona calls me all the time because the nature is so beautiful and so, you know, magnificent. But whatever you are, there's always some place that you can go outside and look at the sky and look at the clouds and look at, you know, the world. There's so much to look at and we miss out too. You know, colors. And then you get in a room like, you know, I like colors. So I have like Buddha there and the different tones. I have a picture I'm looking here too, so full of colors. So colors, tones, variation, not only black and whites or, you know, so clothes that you wear, the texture of the clothes, you know, how it feels when you wear it. you know? So all this makes you feel alive. So I talked about seeing, I talked about touching, I talked about smelling, hearing. What music you like to hear? We all love music. Are you all hearing music enough? My boyfriend and I, we love music. He plays piano. He's very good at piano. He can play piano. He reads a book, and he plays classical and beautiful music. And I'm like, oh, and I flow to those songs, you know. And then sometimes it stops the piano. Then I put Pandora and I listen to songs. Sometimes I want to listen to bird burping, you know. So I have a station for birds or dolphins. So you have all these kind of things. So we take advantage, because I do believe that life is here for us. Life is presenting itself to us. But if you're not in tune, you know, with what is available for you, you know, taste. Some people are used to just one type of food or taste, but experience different tastes, you know, sour, sweet. You know, they say that our tongue has so many glands that can, you know, taste different tastes that we haven't even tasted yet. So explore yourself, allow yourself to have that experience. So be open for new experiences. So it's exciting. I know that every day there's different things that I can do and happen to me. So that's why, you know, it excites me and it keeps me in high vibe, because I'm aware of that. I'm aware, I'm awake. I'm awake that I have a body, that I have sensations, that I have those are the two main exercises that I would suggest people to do.
And when, you know, I keep thinking about how you're using the common theme of the observer. And I'm wondering if there is, but if there is, where is the separation between you, maybe your physical self, who you are, and your observer?
Interesting question. Very interesting. I think that when I get in the stories of life, and when things happen, because life, when it's happening, happens fast, right? Things start to happen. We're interacting with people. People have moods, right? We have moods. We have, you know, all kinds of, there's the moon that may change and influence us. There's so many other external facts that can influence on our whole state of being, right? If it's raining, it can go out, and if you're frustrated, if you can't do something that you really want to do, then you know, you feel frustrated. So those are normal things that we encounter in our daily lives. And then you're talking to people and they have different opinion, and it may feel like, you know, it may strike like, oh, they don't like me because they have a different opinion. And then it goes back to like when we were tribes, you know, if you think different, you may attack me. So I think that it's really practicing. It's a practice to understand that you're not your story and you're not your mind. Because our mind, we always create thoughts, because mind is like a computer. You know, the mind without direction is like a wild horse. It wants to go everywhere. It doesn't have direction. And that's how we grow up. We don't understand that we are not our minds. Our minds is something that works like our heart. You know, a heart beat through blood through our system. Our lungs makes us breathe, you know, oxygen to our body. And the mind processes thoughts. Mind will always be thinking. But when you identify with every thought the mind is thinking, also I believe the mind also is like a radio. You know, you can, like whatever, like I said, I mentioned before, AM, FM. So however you are tuning in, mind will capture those wavelengths and start processing. And then you identify, you think it's your thought. You think you were thinking it because you're confused. You think you identify with the mind and you forget that you are not it. You are the observer. So it's really practicing. And I think that, you know, every Buddhist monk or yoga teacher, or, you know, when you go do those kind of quiet meditation, the process is for you to understand that you're not your thoughts. So you observe your thoughts. So it's different. It's difficult to grasp that at first. And meditation is a training for that. It's not the only training, but it's one very good training. So it's basically really learning and understand that you are not your mind. You're not your thoughts. Your thoughts work for you, you know? So for me, that became really clear. And the exercise that I put myself into is like this, is through the senses, through knowing, okay, the observer wants me to get this paper and use it as a fan. All right, the observer is observing me doing this. Now the observer wants me to stop doing this now, so I stop. So it's really guiding my life through intentional thinking. So my thoughts are not going all over the place. And sometimes if there is a thought, I was questioning that thought. Is that my thought? Or is the radio catching a thought out there? Did I explain clear enough?
Yeah. Yeah, and I like that you use the word intention, because that was fairly new to me over the last, I'd say, year. You know, you hear that word and everything, but until you start studying what that means, how it applies, how powerful it is, and how it can direct you in your life, it's just a word. But intention is extremely powerful. And instead of being on automatic pilot, like you were saying, like with the pen, you can pick up the pen, you can write, and you can put down the pen. But to slow yourself down and think about, like you said, like, where did it come from? Like, who made this? What packaging was it in before it got to me? How many boxes of pens were in the box that was delivered to the store that I bought it from, right? And you start going in those different layers. It's like now you're kind of seeing all of the depth in the world. And so when we're on automatic pilot, we may just be like kind of flying on the surface level, and we miss all of that. And what I love about you, Rosane, is that you appreciate that in a way that most people don't. And bringing that perspective to your clients must illuminate their life almost instantly. And all the colors that you spoke of, now their life goes from, you know, like black and white to technicolor, like the Wizard of Oz, right? And so if people are wanting this, if people want the joy that you have that's spilling over to spill onto them, how would they contact you to work with you?
Oh, it's so sweet of you. So yes, I have a website. It's called aroadtoyou.com. And so that's the best way to go. Right there, there is like a place where you can fill in, like write a message to me, and you know, we can just start from there. So what I really, the way I coach is that I use the body and the mind together. So that, because it comes from my dance background and all this thing about being in Sedona in the nature. So hiking therapy is my favorite. We go out in the wild in trails and talk about life. So that's my favorite thing to do. And I do retreats in Sedona too. So, you know, organize groups or personal private retreats. But retreat, you know, I love the word retreat. It's like pull back, you know, and to get another perspective and go back to life, you know, empowered and strong. So I love retreats because it really brings you that empowerment that you need. Sometimes when you are in your city, in your life, in your daily, you know, it's like there was the movie, the Hog Day, right?
Groundhog Day.
Wake up, it's the same day. My son was talking to me, Mom, it looks like I'm in that movie, you know. He was here in Sedona, like, so good to be here. But yes, give yourself that break, you know, that you need. And we coaches, we are here. And what I love about coaches like you, Rebecca, too, is like we are here to facilitate that awakening. Like we're nothing more than just facilitators of that path that we all have, that we all can be. And it's a delight to me to see somebody finding it, you know, and it's great.
Oh, I love it. And you know, we were talking before the show about, you know, me coming out there and experiencing Sedona. I've always wanted to go. And I bet there are many people out there who feel the same, who have never been. So, you know, I just want to thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank our viewers for sticking with us and experiencing this wonderful episode that just taught us that there's an abundance of joy. And all we have to do is take ourselves off of automatic pilot and just tap in and open ourselves up so that that joy just flows right in. And there is a different perspective out there where we can see the positive in everything. And if we focus on it, then our lives are consistently positive and wonderful opportunities come our way and we see miracles everywhere. So if you want to work with Rosane and invite this into your life, let this actually be your life, then contact her, and we wish you the best. This has been a wonderful episode, and I want to thank you all for being here. So that's it for us today. Thanks so much, guys. Take care.
It's so easy to get in touch with intuition. Go
Yeah.
to the top of the mountain, and like in the Bible, every guy that talks to God, they're on top of mountains. You don't go to the bottom of a river.
I thought it was a fish tank the first time you said that, and then I was thinking, oh, don't turn that off. We want to keep the fish around.
Yeah, right. It's the fountain, a little fountain.
Okay.
It calms me down. It's so funny, Rebecca. One friend of mine, because I was telling him it's very difficult to promote coaching, because we are like doctors that doctors don't promote they kind of are like, we're kind of there, we're doctors of the mind. And he goes, hey, you're a doc. Actually, he was the one who said, you guys are like doctors of the mind. And then you can say something like this. If you promote, it's gonna be like this. Hey guys, I have a promotion today. We cut 2 legs. He's an orthopedic doc. For 1, come to my office. 2 legs for 1 now.